Good morning, colleagues. And my name is Sina Luchen. The focal point for the CADRI agenda in Southern Africa and based at the FAO sub-regional office in Johannesburg. I would like to just welcome all of you. Unfortunately, I cannot switch on my video. It would have been nice, I think, to just pop a bit, but my line is a bit weak. I'm working from home. So I hope I can be excused. Otherwise, I think you are all welcome to this meeting because I think this webinar spells a major step towards making CADRI, standardization of CADRI in terms of data collection and ensuring that all of us are on the same page. I know it has been a process. It has taken, I think this process started a couple of years, actually, if I can say that, if I'm correct, even before the advent of the COVID. But the coming of the COVID-19, I think, gave it more impetus to, I think, start using such tools to ensure efficiency. And I would like to thank my colleagues in Geneva who have actually been initiating this work, as well as the other colleagues in the two regions of East Africa and Southern Africa for the inputs in trying to perfect these tools, which are very useful in the CADRI diagnosis. That said, I think I don't have any more words. Thank you very much for present, and we can, I think, proceed. Thank you, and over.
Thank you very much, Sina. We'd like to give the floor then to Arnold, who is going to present the objectives of the webinar and also give us a brief introduction on the CADRI Partnership.
Thank you so much, colleagues. I hope you can all hear me. Ruben? Is it okay?
We do, yeah.
Thank you. For the purpose of presentation, probably I will switch off my video. But my name is Arnold. Colleagues, thanks for finding time to join us this particular call. So I facilitate CADRI mechanism in both East and Southern Africa. I see a number of colleagues we've met together. And just following what Sina has mentioned, there's a lot process that has gone into developing this digital tool for CADRI to basically enable the agencies, but most importantly, governments to be able to handle it and do it at their own pace and with their own specification. So I'll speak, we'll co-share this presentation with my colleague, Ruben. I'll take you through the objectives and then the methodology itself. So if we could go to the next, so the objective of this particular webinar is just mainly twofold. To be able to give our agencies, and we mentioned, of course, by extension, this will go to our governments and other stakeholders, a better understanding of this CADRI methodology itself, and then to have a basic understanding or a clear understanding of how this particular tool, now digital, is going to support the implementation of capacity diagnosis mission. Not only the mission capacity diagnosis, but also processes of scoping and other functionalities that the tool will be able to give us. So for this session, those are the two main objectives. But I also like to go into what this CADRI methodology or this CADRI mechanism is all about. Then next slide. So as we always say, CADRI is a story or it's a journey that began way back in 2007 just as a training program, mainly focusing on training government officials on implementing of the Yogo framework, which has now passed, and now we're in the new regime of the Sendai framework. And it's just a group of partners, both UN led and Red Cross or IFRC, who just want to capitalize on their specialized skills and capacities to be able to mobilize resources as well as experts from our agencies themselves, but also from tapping into EU owned mechanisms and expertise to be able to support countries to reduce their climate and disaster risk through the various capacities in terms of development sectors that they face. So it's just a group. You could put it together, like calling it like almost like a members club, where you come in and you enjoy all the rights that come with it, whether it's services, whether it's training, whether it's individual capacity building on issues around DRR and climate change adaptation. Over to the next slide. So when you talk about the expertise, one might be asking, but what are these sectors that we are focusing on? So the sectors are many. You can see there are 9 as we speak. They talk about whether it's in wash, whether it's in nutrition, whether it's in environment, infrastructure, human mobility, health, agriculture. So we try to see how we support governments and more importantly UN agencies who are working in these particular areas to better find entry points into the climate risk. And of course, the whole agenda is on delivering on SDGs. So how do we risk proof, for example, or climate proof our various development goals through various sectors that we can see here in terms of all. So it's also supporting the broader Agenda 2030, but specifically focusing on disaster risk and climate risk components within the various tools. So already from this particular slide, you can already see the expertise that we intend or we bring to governments, whether it's in preparedness, whether it's in risk analysis, whether it's in risk governance, around the Sendai 4 priorities of action. This is what we propose or we offer to governments and our UN agencies who are part of actually the CADRI mechanism. Next slide. So when you talk about capacities, we might be asking what are we looking at when we're talking about developing countries or assisting countries come up with capacities around the various areas. So there are mainly 5 areas or 4 areas that we're looking at. One capacity area is on governance, and governance we're talking about, or we talk about disaster risk governance. We are talking about issues to do with whether countries have laws in place, whether they have institutions in place managing disaster risks, whether they have reporting structures in between there. So how does governance for DRR or climate change adaptation look like in a particular country? Then the other second dimension is on implementation capacity. How, other than the policies, other than the institutions, other than the laws, how are they capacitated to be able to implement some of those policies or strategies in place? So the second key area is implementation capacities. What are the structures? What are the skills and competencies within the country or within the UNCT to enable implementation of the various DRR and CCA laws? Then the third component is financing, very important. Even now in climate change, you're talking about climate change financing and this increasing call around adaptation, where we find most of DRR pieces coming in. We're also interested in knowing not only what is coming in countries from donors or private sector on financing, but also in country. How is budgeting done? How much is allocated towards issues of prevention? We know a lot is going into emergency response to save life and address suffering, but how much is dedicated towards risk reduction, preventive approach to work? Then the fourth dimension is on knowledge. Of course, we know we need to be informed by data. So how is data being collected? How is this data shared? What are the innovative and best practices that's happening in these countries going forward? Then lastly, the fifth element of capacity that we keep talking about is on technology, and capacity issues. What capacities or technologies exist in these particular countries to be able to, be able to enable a holistic approach to all aspects. So in brief, this is just, and there are more detailed guidance on each of these capacity dimensions we're talking about, which you can also as well be able to share. Next. Yeah, so this is also just a summary of all that we're mentioning. That's the other slide. But one of the thing about this, the best practice of this tool is also on the mainstreaming. The tool has been going through revision, or the CADRI methodology is going through a lot of revisions. But all the most notable revision is the incorporation of leaving no one behind and conflict sensitivity, as well as multidimensional approach to risk that have been embedded, or they have been incorporated in this particular tool. Of course, climate change is really impacting the intensity and frequency of the hazards that are leading to major disasters. So the tool has, in a creative and in a very best way, tried to incorporate a conflict sensitivity. And when you talk about conflict sensitivity here, you get elements of the new humanitarian peace development nexus. So how do we even be able to, use this tool in those conflict or fragile setup? Because DRR, we know it's always been implemented in more stable environments. But how is it looking at in conflict setup? Considering we are also seeing the countries that are conflict risk are the ones also that are experiencing this increasing hazards, whether it's in drought or floods as well. So the tool tries to, incorporate those alongside the sectors, but also those ones are generic that just focus on climate change. And we also see increasing the role of private sector in risk management in climate change. But more importantly is all this that we do at national level needs to find implementation and domestication at the local level. So this is just a slide to show that the key feature of this digital tool is incorporating the principles of leaving no one behind, as well as conflict sensitivity with the inclusion of private sector into the main sectoral, sort of what have been our bread sectoral focus, as well as in generic tools for the mechanism. Next slide. So this is just a very nice slide to show you in terms of development, the efforts in terms of investment. So a lot of CADRI partner agencies have invested a lot of their time, both resources and expertise between the year 2020, actually beginning 2019 to date, to put in their expertise information around this. So for example, agriculture FAO has been very instrumental together with WFP and WMO on trying to bring in the agricultural data around this in this module. Of course, from a risk reduction or from a climate smart agriculture point of view, UNESCO has contributed to heritage, and we're seeing lots and lots of heritage sites suffering impacts of flooding and all those kind of things. Of course, UNICEF in education, together with other agencies like UNFPA and UNESCO also too, because of the education bit. UNEP on environment, IOM human mobility aspects, together with UNFPA, WHO with health, UNDP infrastructure. So LNOB principles or gender issues, we've seen UNFPA, IFRC, together UN Women coming in strongly to contribute. So what we keep saying is CADRI is for the membership. It's not a secretariat project. It is for all of us, and various organizations have contributed towards both resource-wise and personnel-wise to ensure that the modules get their up-to-date, top-notch information and how this can find implementation when we conduct this CADRI, whether it's scoping or diagnosis in various countries that we get demand for service. Next slide. So those are just the introductory aspects, just giving you an understanding of what CADRI is all about, the objectives of this session and sort of the evolution of this tool and the new principles that have come in, I will hand over to my colleague Ruben, who's been, working extra hard together with the consultant to this tool to take you over through on how this tool works out, the functionalities of it. Over to you, Ruben, and thanks, Vanessa.
Thanks, Arnold, for the presentation. Also, thanks, Sina. I just want to highlight something that Sina mentioned at the beginning of the session in his introduction. It is the idea of standardization. What Arnold has just presented is these efforts from all the CADRI members to standardize this approach to understand capacity needs at the country level to scale up implementation of Sendai framework, to scale up capacities to really deal with disaster and climate change risks. The presentation about the tool now is going to be Vanessa. She's been also working with us. She's going to work you through the tool, how the different functionalities, and just give you an example of the actual development. And after, we're going to have like a Q&A session about the tool. So I'll give you the floor to Vanessa. She's going to introduce you to the tool.
Yes, thank you, Ruben and Arnold and Sina. My name is Vanessa, and I work in Geneva with the CADRI Partnership Secretariat. And let me just quickly show you this tool. I'm sure some of you have already, gone through it. And at the moment, we have 3 tool functionalities that are already working, which is, of course, the admin part, but also the mission planning is very developed, and also the reporting has been developed. And just to show you sort of what's coming next, we are planning to implement the prioritization and planning function, as well as the follow-up function. And in order to show you how the tool works, I will give you a sort of live demo now. Let me just quickly switch the screen. So as my colleagues have already mentioned, the CADRI tool was developed jointly by the CADRI partners to help facilitate the overall CADRI process. So it provides access to the repository of knowledge on DRR and CCA, guiding the capacity diagnosis mission, which is at the core of the CADRI service offer, so to say. And it also provides a common workspace to coordinate actions and compile findings. And if you want to access this tool, you can go on the CADRI Partnership website, click on CADRI Tool, then you can access it. You can log in as a user. If you're not a user yet, we highly invite you to request access to it. And then once you're logged in, you will be directed to your personal profile. But for now, let me go to the dashboard already, which shows the main 4 functions the tool has so far. So we have the missions and country section, the users, the question bank, and the help and support section. The help and support section gathers the frequently asked questions and is used to help you guide through the digital tool interface. So just very short on the sidelines, but the main component of this tool and what has been reworked by all the CADRI partners is the question bank. So this is really the core of the tool by now. It gathers almost 6,000 questions. This question bank will continuously grow as people have the option to insert and propose new questions, but also we plan on integrating new modules. As Arnold said, at the moment we have 9 sectoral modules and 1 generic module. We are currently working, or UNICEF is working on developing a module on social protection. So this question bank is a work in progress, and we continuously work on it with, of course, also your help and other global and regional experts' help to improve the question bank and to enlarge the question bank. So if you look for specific guidance for your capacity diagnosis mission, in this question bank you have 2 options. Either you can search for specific keywords that you have in mind, or you can use the filters that we've developed, which are capacities, report elements, the 10 modules we have at the moment. You can also filter for hazards and for key principles, so the leaving no one behind, conflict sensitivity, etc. that Arnold mentioned. So when I click on certain modules, and I, for example, want to look at culture and gender equity, I can select the filters, search my questions, and then the tool will generate the questions that are tagged with the culture and the gender equity and women empowerment principles. So right now, you see I've narrowed down the question bank. And as you can already see here, we have 3 levels of questions. So we have the core aggregated questions, which are the highest level of assessment, so to say, which really look into the core of the capacity dimension that we're looking at. Each core aggregated question will have several, or even sometimes only one first order question, which help you to assess the core aggregated question. And if you want even more detail, you can click on the first order question and you will get the second order questions, which help you to assess the first order question and then help you again to assess the core aggregated question. So this is for the question bank. There's more functions as well, but for the moment, let's leave it here and let me show you the third function, which is the user database. In this database, we have regional and global experts that have signed up that can be deployed on CADRI missions, but of course also can be used to search for expertise on other matters. So either if you know who you're looking for, you can search the user by name. But if you, for example, look for a specific person with a specific profile for a certain CADRI capacity diagnosis mission, you can select certain criteria like their regional coverage, their area of specialization, or their working language. And the tool will generate if there's users with this profile that you can deploy. In order for this user database, of course, to work, it's very important that when people register for the tool, they fill out the personal profile that we've seen at the very beginning. So we can actually create this user database, which can be used by everyone who's registered within the tool. But now let me get to the fourth part, which is the missions and country section. And this is really the part that helps you to plan and implement a capacity diagnosis mission. And all the missions you see here right now are solely for test purposes, so none of them have taken place. And I will show you now together how we can add a new mission, so to say. So first of all, I decide what mission type I'm pursuing. So as I said, by now, we only have the option for capacity diagnosis. The prioritization and planning is not yet developed. Then I can select one of the countries where I have the rights to create missions. So let's choose Colombia. And I can also choose the report type. So I can either have a generic DRR and CCA capacity diagnosis mission, but I can also focus on climate change adaptation only, on disaster preparedness, or on risk information. Then I have to select a due date. And the title will be automatically generated from these information that I've already fed in the tool. In the next step, I will select the modules that have been selected together with the government and the UN country team that are supposed to be looked at in more detail. So let's, for this purpose, choose 3 modules. I can also include hazards, specific hazards, if I want to, that I can choose from this drop-down menu. I won't do that for the moment. And then I can also include the description. So the description will really reflect the scope that has been defined in the scoping process before the capacity diagnosis mission, together with the government, to define what this capacity diagnosis is looking at. So for now, I will only write test mission. And then I can already see that the country analytical frame, so the set of questions to guide the capacity diagnosis analysis based on the country's areas of interest, is already defined on the base of what I've been selecting here, so especially on the modules. So I will create the mission now. And we can see now here that it has been added to the missions page. So this is basically the first step to create, to create the mission. And in the next step, let's click on this mission page, and you can already see, since I created the mission, I was assigned the team leader role. But I can also add sub-teams. So remember, we've created 3 modules. So we have the agriculture sector. So I will create a sub-team for agriculture and food security. And now I can search the user database or directly drag and drop the people that are the sub-team leaders and also the people that are the sub-team members. So for example, if I search for Arnold, I can drag him over here. So, okay, this was not saved. Let's do it again. Okay, I'm not sure why this is not working, but then I will show you with another mission, how it looks like. So I can, as I said, you can create your sub-teams with the sub-team leaders and the different sub-team members. And they will be responsible to conduct the analysis and answer the questions that have been defined in the country analytical frame. So the country analytical frame, when I first create the mission, is a collection of all the questions that are tagged with the specific modules that I've been chosen. So, for example, in this specific mission, we've chosen agriculture and food security and environment and specific hazards of drought and floods. So in this country analytical frame now, I see my 2 modules as well as the 5 capacity diagnosis dimensions, which are the basis for the CADRI diagnosis mission. And now I have the option to assign the core aggregated questions as well as the first and second order questions to specific users. So either I can use the option assign all to one team member. Here, for example, in this case, all questions have been assigned to Natalie. For the governance module in agriculture and food security, but I can also assign only one specific core aggregated question to a team leader. So here, for example, we can see that these questions have been assigned to two team members. So I can save this, and then I will see in the country analytical frame page who is responsible to answer and assess which questions. So now we can see that it has been saved here. In order to now assess the questions, the specific user and team member can go to his or her personal user analytical frame. So after all the questions in the country analytical frame have been assigned to the different sub-teams and the team members, I can go to the user analytical frame of me, for example, as the specific user. Let's try again. Okay, I think we also have a connection issue on our end here. Yeah, so basically the user analytical frame will show the specific user which question he or she is responsible to answer and assess in order to conduct the capacity diagnosis mission. It includes like the questions that have been assigned to him or her, and we can see if it works now, because the user analytics frame page, you can check it out later, will clearly show you which questions you have to answer, and you have a scale from 1 to 5 in which you can rate how you score a specific co-aggregated question. The score should be predefined together with the mission team, so it's not too subjective, but that you follow a certain agreed upon guidance and that the overall team follows an agreed upon guidance. You also have the option to add specific justifications and recommendations. And once all the users have filled out their user analytical frame, they've answered all the questions, they can submit their user analytical frame to be approved by the sub-team leader or by the team leader per se. And you can already see here that some of these user analytical frames have been approved and some are still in progress. I will try again to see if it works.
Now you can show the box.
Okay, we can show you again later, but let me first finish this because we're almost through the parts of this mission and country section. Okay, now I'm in one of the user analytical frames. So I can see again here all the questions that have been assigned to me. And here you see the scoring that I can give. And also there's a field, if I'm the user and I have the rights to answer these questions, you will see a field with the justifications, and also it has a specific analysis if I want to give that. I can also download my user analytical frame if I'm working offline. And once all the users have submitted their user analytical frames, and these user analytical frames have been approved by the sub-team leader and the team leader, the report outline is created automatically. I can show you you can see it here. Here's the button for the report outline. And this is only first draft, so the team will have to download it and work on it also offline. You find a general findings section as well as one for the specific sectors. And for example, here in this agriculture and food security sub-team, we've received some inputs, and you can see here a visualization of the outcomes of the capacity diagnosis mission, as well as the sections with findings and recommendations for the different capacity diagnosis components. So here you can also again see the scores that have been assigned. This report outline, once it has been finalized offline, can be uploaded again. And maybe just one last component, you also have the option to upload other documents on this mission page. You have here the documents library. For the moment, you can only upload PDF documents there. But this is sort of how the tool is built and constructed. And we just really quick see if now we can access the user analytic frame. But maybe that's also enough for now. And we can go back and see if any of you have any questions.
Thanks, Vanessa. While we wait our colleagues in case they have any question about the tool, just to mention that when Vanessa was describing what we call the user analytical frame, meaning the set of questions that are selected when you are defining the sector that we're going to look at during the capacity diagnosis missions. So these are the set of questions that the tool is going to recommend. extract from the whole question bank that we have. But is the role of the team that is assigned to this mission to look at these questions and select from those questions those that they think are more relevant for the specific context where they are, the specific country context. So this is part of the process. So the tool is going to facilitate this process, but of course is the mission team that is going to define, okay, these are the set of questions that we're going to use, these are the type of guidance that we are going to use. When we are customizing what we call the country analytical frame, these set of questions, so customizing means we could eliminate some of those questions from that specific country analytical frame. In this specific case, we're not going to use these questions that the tool is suggesting, so we can remove them, the corrugated or the different levels. Those questions are going to be deleted from the specific country analytical frame, but not from the core question bank. And also we could, if we consider that there are some issues that were not included in this guidance, we can include extra questions. We could add questions to this country analytical frame. So the idea is that this framework should be flexible and is going to enable us to identify or to define the guidance that we are going to use when we are going to assess the capacities at the country level with the different stakeholders we're going to interview, the documents we're going to review. So basically the tool is going to provide that guidance.